Hey, good evening, everybody. We're back for another edition of Meteorology Lab. And we definitely do get our beautiful sunsets out here because this is Texas. We've got a wide open sky here and a view out to the west, and never get tired of those. So anyway, that's what it looked like earlier. And some good news here. Well, I got some good news and bad news. Good news is we've only dropped 69 frames, so that's only about 3 seconds that we dropped there. If you're seeing any buffering, it may be in the network somewhere between, probably between our ISP and YouTube and you, I think. As far as the bad news, I decided to give you kind of a sneak peek at the printer setup. This is the Instability SKU-T Photograph Handbook. I know some of you have been looking for this, and you can see that we submitted that job on the 5th of December, and we're still showing it's in setup. So we're still kind of battling with a printer about this, and I'm pretty frustrated about this. It could be just because of, you know, the Christmas and New Year's season. Maybe that's taken a toll there, but hopefully we will get past this within a few days here and get that book in print. So just hang on a bit longer and hopefully we'll have that book ready. Okay, so it looks like some activity off the North Carolina coast. We've got a very deep storm system off the coast, and we talked about that yesterday. We had a shortwave moving through Oklahoma and Texas, and we were talking about how it was moving rapidly along the Gulf Coast, and now we find it's all the way out in the Atlantic. So it is a very fast-moving storm. And let's see if we can get a look at that here. There we go. There's the surface analysis, and we are picking up a little bit of freezing rain around the Wilmington area. Fortunately, a lot of it along Cape Hatteras is liquid, but there is a little bit of snow back in this area here, right along the coast there. And Charleston, they picked up what was their third snowiest day on record, and I believe they had 5 inches there. And that's not the end of it. If we go up north, we've got the gun reloading up to the north. You see the temperatures up here, minus 10 to minus 20 up in this region, and minus 27 there. We'll take a look at a couple soundings there and show you what kind of impact that's going to have later. But as far as Texas goes down here, we're warming up into the 30s and 40s, looking much better in this region. And just taking a quick look out in California, we do have some showers and rain moving into that area, and mild conditions. We'll take a look at that on the satellite photo here in a minute. And putting it together, this is the thickness and isobars here. So we can see that storm system off the coast. That's a look at what the frontal analysis looks like. So that's going to move pretty much right up the Gulf Stream waters and graze the Atlantic coast with some snow and a bit of ice there. The core of the polar air is up in the Hudson Bay region. And the question is not necessarily how cold it is, but also how deep. So let's take a look at the soundings. And I'll try, let's see here, what is this? Yeah, that's going to be up in central Manitoba. We'll pull up the sounding. And yeah, this is looking cold once again and quite deep. The most severe air topping out at about 4,000 feet, which is fairly deep. And it looks like a lot of polar air extends on up to about 10,000 or so. International Falls, also showing pretty cold there. Pretty much this is going to be below 0 all the way up the column. And I'll try Pickle Lake in Ontario. And this is almost minus 30 Celsius all the way up to column also. So a lot of cold air coming together, and this is the temperature anomaly there, showing a cold air mass developing in Minnesota, the North Dakota area, and adjacent areas of Canada. And this shows you a little bit what's causing it. This is the polar orbiter data. And yeah, you can see the lakes out in this region. That's indicative of a lot of clear air in that region. Very clear, cold conditions. We're insulated from the ground. So this is a very ripe setup here for the formation of polar air. And a pretty cool look at this lake effect snow here in Lake Superior. The flow is going from north to south. As it flows out over the waters, it picks up moisture and deposits the lake effect snows in the UP of Michigan and Wisconsin in this area here. So pretty spectacular there. Kind of surprising that there's not a whole lot of ice in Lake Superior, but this is a very deep lake, so it has a lot of thermal mass, and it's going to take a while to get ice going in that, but the water's certainly very, very cold there. All right, let me take a look at the chat, make sure everything's ship-shape. Let's see, let me give you the regular satellite photo, get a little motion going. And there we go. So that's the current weather. We've got Jeff Krob up there in Maryland, awaiting the blizzard, 8 to 12 inches forecast. Got to go to work, essential employee. I've been there myself when I did forecasting. I remember going out to my car after I had to work during an ice storm, and I came out to my car and there was about an inch of ice all over the whole thing. So I stayed after work about 4 hours there, trying to get all the ice off my car so I could get home. Fred Reamer also joining us, Burl H. and Lexi in Texas there, made it up in the 50s. We've got Ryan Toomeys in Florida calling cold temperatures. Carl Berghoff had to clean up a couple of inches of snow there. Adam Davis says, never thought 20 degrees would feel warm. Fred Reamer reporting -4 in Grand Forks. Brett Dean waiting on the blizzard there with 25. Ryan mentioning snow falling in Tallahassee and Gainesville, Florida. That's up in the north earlier today. Jeff Lockwood and Adam Davis says he wants to move back to wide open sky country. Jason Boggs reporting 50 degrees at Pampa, getting that downslope air from, Pampa is located right about here. So they're just downslope of the Rockies and getting a warm day. 1/10 of an inch at Tallahassee, where Jeff Lockwood is. Burl H., thanks for letting us know about the book status. The Adam Davis asks about the Palm Sunday publication. I believe that's being sold by Daphne Zaras and Jim Ledoux. So those would be the people to contact. I strictly did editorial services for them. But I'm sure if they have extras, they'll be glad to sell you a copy of the book. It's the Palm Sunday. I'll have to look that up later, but I think if you Google around, and what that book was, it was kind of, maybe I'll bring that out sometime and talk about that during one of these upcoming segments. But yeah, Google around, and that's a good book there. Fun with Tech joining us. Ryan says the storm off the coast is intense. Fred Reamer mentioning Palm Sunday 65, that's right. Flights diverting away from the eastern seaboard routes. Jeff Lockwood looking at that wet bulb plot. Ryan saying many delays and flight cancellations piling up. Carl Berghoff says, remember to hit those likes. And Justin says, nice to have these back up. Ice-coated car, stay home, yeah. Mike Estwick, 37 in Denver, very nice for this time. And yeah, let's go ahead and press on. So you've had a good chance to look at this satellite image, and the yellow and the green, the dark green, that's indicating the coldest part of the air. So the absolute coldest air is up in northern Minnesota, or northern Manitoba. Let me go back, get back to that there. Yeah, you see it way up there at the top. That's where the core of the polar areas that we're generating it in this region, and it's basically spilling south as a big gravity current, just heading south. Or I should say kind of a density current, kind of steamrolling south. We can see the lake effect snows there in the lakes, and some more in Lake Michigan. And there's our storm system off in the Atlantic. Let me advance this up and kind of pause this. And you can see the dry slot out in that area here. So that's the area of subsidence working back in behind the system. The jet stream patterns are going to run something like this. So this shows you kind of the S shape, the trough. The upper level trough is going to look something like that right there. And ahead of that trough, we have all the upper level lift. And this shows us the warm air advection wing located out here. Kind of looks like a big wing, doesn't it? And then back in here, we have the deformation zone. And that wraps into the back of the system where we have the surface low somewhere in this area here. And then if we wanted to draw the fronts, that's pretty easy. Just going to run something like that. And then the warm front is going to be just south of the warm advection wing, kind of like that. So this is kind of a reflection of all this isentropic lift out in this area right here. And then out in the warm sector, which is this area here, this is all warm, unstable air, so we can get a few thunderstorms going in that region, and there's some right there. And then a second line right out there. So very stormy in that quadrant of that storm system there. Okay, so that's a look what's going on out in the Atlantic, and that's going to be tracking right up the coast, and we'll take a look at that a little bit later with the NAM and GFS models. Okay, let's look at the rest of the charts. There's the potential temperature map. It's not of very much use out east or in the central part because the front is very far offshore. So this right here, this gradient, that's kind of meaningless. That's kind of an artifact. And then, let's see, in the western U.S., I don't know, we might have a small gradient kind of out in this area here. So I might kind of look for maybe a cold air mass in this region. And then California, definitely very warm, and potential temperature 26 there at Tonopah. Let's look at the surface chart. And it has cooled down a little bit, but we were seeing 40s and 50s there in Nevada. So yeah, this is all very warm here. And I've heard in Utah, it's been very dry there. They haven't gotten those snows that we usually get by January. So they're looking for a big fire danger out in the Rockies if they don't get some relief here soon. Okay, looking at the rest of the charts, let's see if we can get these mesoscale sectors going. I don't think I have a very good window here. I guess we'll give this one a try. I don't have a sector focused on the Cape Hatteras area. That's really what we need. But we can watch this come up the coast towards Boston. Okay, so this is going to be later tonight. And then we get into tomorrow morning around dawn. And then this is going to be about lunchtime. So the system is starting to approach maybe within 300 miles of Block Island and the Chatham area. And we can see that the sustained winds coming up to about 30 knots in the Boston area. And for the most part, the center of the circulation stays offshore. But what this doesn't show you is the precip field, and I've got another chart set up for that. But yeah, they definitely are getting the wraparound, the deformation zone clouds, and up to the northwest. Yeah, here's the cold air starting to show up. And let's see if I can move this sector around. Give me just a second here. Okay, there we go. Okay, so yeah, if you look at Lake Superior here, I think we can see that cold air spilling southward. So there it is, heading for Sault Ste. Marie, located right there, and Wawa, Ontario, right there. And here comes that next front. So it's going to move overnight through the UP of Michigan. And then it starts showing up into Michigan and Toronto during the day on Thursday. And now you can see it spreading during the day Thursday into New York and Pennsylvania. And this is going to be a really cold blast here. And if this doesn't show you the temperatures, I've got another map that'll show that. But yeah, look at those temperatures coming in. When we start out the day on Friday, that's going to be at about dawn right there. And you can see all this white area in New York, around Scranton, up to Albany, and up to New Hampshire. All that's going to be below zero. And then during the day, this is going to be about, this is about 4 p.m. This is the peak heating. And you can see Albany here with 6 according to the NAM, -1 at Syracuse. I think I can see 1 at Boston, 9 at New York City, and Montreal around -11. So yeah, this is going to be a cold one for sure. Elsewhere around the U.S., let's go out to the Midwest. Maybe we can catch the tail of this outbreak coming south. So I think that might be it right there, coming southward right now. And part of this is going to hit Indiana and Illinois there. And let's see, we climb up to about 12 degrees in Indianapolis and 11 in Chicago tomorrow. And then cold air advection working southeastward. So we're going to drop below zero in those areas. And then coming up later during the day, 12. So maybe just a tiny bit colder. The bulk of the cold air is up in the corner. So this is going to mostly impact the eastern Great Lakes in the northeast U.S. So this is probably a bit of good news for Fred Reamer up there in Grand Forks, and for those of us out in the west, in the plains. Okay, let's see. What do we got next? I guess we can try to take a look at that system out in the Atlantic. I'm not sure if anything's going to show up. It's going to probably be covered by a lot of overcast. So this is earlier today. This is about 11 or 12, and I see what looks like maybe some convective elements right in this area here. It's definitely very, very high albedo there in the Savannah and Jacksonville area. And this is shortly before the system moved out into the Atlantic. So you would not want to be a boat sitting out there without any source of weather data. Okay. We'll take a look at the long wave pattern. This is the past 5 days or so. So what we see here, pretty strong long wave troughing in the eastern and central U.S. and a pretty good ridge. And that ridge building up northward into Alaska and Yukon. That helps tap some of the Arctic air up in this region, and that drives that southeastward. So that's one reason we're getting a lot of this cold air coming southeast. So height anomalies on the low side on the east coast, very strong troughing. And you can see how it just kind of builds there. Continued ridge west and trough to the east. Okay. I think the only other thing I want to look at is the Pacific, because we do got a system moving onshore there in California. And there it is, moving into Rancho Alphonse area. Looks like a front coming right into the coast right there. I'm guessing that... I'm thinking maybe that is the front. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe something like that. I would have to look at some data, but I think this up here, this is all occluded. So that would go northwest as a occluded front like that. And some of the heavier precip is going to be up in the central and northern part of the state. Hopefully they pick up a little bit of precip here over the next day or so. But we'll check it out and see what the GFS shows. Okay, so let's go ahead and line up the forecasts. I think we're going to start out with the mesoscale. We'll look at the NEM on the East Coast. Okay, and let me take a quick look at the chat. Let's see here. Oh, okay, yeah, Mike Estrick mentioning Utah. Haven't gotten significant snow since December 23rd. Fred Raymer says we could get up to freezing at 8:50 in 312 hours. So, yeah, that'll give you something to look forward to there, Fred. All right, so let's look at the forecast on the East Coast here. So we can see the system off the Carolinas moving up the coast. And we set it into motion. And we can see the convective elements are pretty well built up in that deformation zone. The center of the low located right there. And then for dawn, it's going to look like this. System located right there. The rain-snow line offshore. And in this area right here, we're picking up some pretty good precip. So looks like some heavy snow in Long Island, Eastern Maryland, Atlantic City, and up to Providence, Eastern Connecticut, and Boston. And there it goes. And it looks like the precip will be winding down about right here. This is going to be during the evening on Thursday night. So by the time we do the webcast tomorrow night, it's going to look kind of like this. It's going to be shutting down in the Boston area, and that's when we're going to see the cold air advection coming back in with a fury into Pennsylvania and New York there. And indeed, we can see the lower thickness coming into that area right there, 504 decameter, coming into Erie and Buffalo there. So it's going to definitely be a cold one there. And let's take a look at the precip totals. We'll look at it in the terms of snowfall. So this is 24-hour snowfall starting 24 hours from now. And we see that just right along the coast there around Atlantic City and the Hamptons, looking at about maybe 10 to 15 inches there. And also around Boston, about 10 to 12. And then that's pretty well shutting down tomorrow night. So it's going to move through very quickly, pretty good punch, and then it will be out of there. But man, look what comes in behind. That's kind of like the lake effect snows going on there, with kind of like what we see there on Lake Ontario and Lake Erie. And as it picks up that moisture, it dumps a lot of snow, except it's just falling on the ocean. But it's interesting, if we had an island out here, they'd be getting about 6 to 8 inches. So pretty good snowfall there. Okay, and then in terms of ice, we can check that out too. There is an ice product from the NEM. And you can see that most of the problems, about ½ an inch around the Wilmington and Myrtle Beach area. And then it looks like the problems become kind of minimized by tomorrow night. Looks like the column of air cools down very quickly, so that'll shut down any freezing liquid precipitation and change everything over to sleet and then maybe snow there. So freezing rain should be out of the picture by tomorrow night, and it should just all be snow here, which is good news for that area there. I'm sure they don't need that ice. And I wanted to take a look at the Canadian Maritimes. We hardly ever look at them. So here's that system coming up through Nova Scotia, and wow, it's all rain there. And that's due to the very, very strong warm air advection coming north. The flow is almost directly from the Bahamas northward. And then, let's see, finally the warm and cold air gets wrapped around together and the system occludes. And that pretty much shuts down that system there, and it heads north into the graveyard in the Labrador Sea there. And let's just take a look at the snowfall totals for the Maritimes. Looking at about 30 inches there in New Brunswick, around Fredericton. And up towards Labrador, looks like maybe about 10 to 20 inches there. Maybe about 10 inches. And then icing problems. Yeah, look at that right there. Just a very thin band of icing as the precipitation transitions over. It's one of the benefits of having a slow-moving system there. Okay, let's, yeah, I pulled up the temperature products. Let's see what it looks like in the Northeast later this week. This is the temperature anomaly. This is how, if we take what the temperatures are normally like at this time on this date, this shows the departure from normal. So we can kind of see the cold blob pushing southeastward. And I kind of prefer this because it's, if we look at the temperature product, this is the temperature product, and I don't know if you can see the problem that we have here. You notice when we run it through, it flickers back and forth between hot and cold and hot and cold. Those are the diurnal cycles. And it's more noticeable down in this area right now. See how when I move that back, when I move this through the loop, it flickers back and forth, hot, cold, hot, cold. Anomaly will get rid of that because it's not sensitive to whether we're looking at the max temperature or minimum temperature. This is just the departure from normal for that date and time. So you can see it gives us a very consistent look at the temperature anomaly there. And as a result, we can follow the cold air mass very easily. There it is moving through Minnesota right now, and we can track that moving across the Great Lakes right there tomorrow during the day. And then by evening, it's going to be approaching the eastern Great Lakes. And then for Friday, we can see that that's centered over New York and Pennsylvania. So this gives us a very good way of tracking that cold air mass. And there it goes. By Saturday, it's going to be in New England. And finally, it will be breaking up on Sunday. I don't know how many people noticed this up here. These very warm temperatures advecting northward and we end up with temperatures about 20 to 30 degrees above normal with that warm air advection. But in behind this system, we've got warm air replacing it. So by Sunday and Monday, a lot of the country is starting to warm up here. Temperatures about 11 degrees above normal in Dallas, 5 above normal in Minneapolis, 14 above normal in Grand Forks, and almost 20 degrees above normal in Denver. And it looks like it'll stay that way probably till about midweek, and then we get another outbreak coming south. This temperature anomaly product is really fantastic. And we can see that moving south, and it mostly takes a track into the Great Lakes area right there. And then another shot comes through about 10 days from now. Similar track into the Midwest. That could always change if there's differences in the models, like the conditions this far out, 270 hours out, the model is having a look at waves out in Asia. So if those aren't being sampled very well, then we're going to have errors, and as a result, we would see a change in this forecast here. So what it's showing here, this is subject to change. I mean, what more can I say? We'll check it out over the next several days, and hopefully we're not going to be looking at another deep freeze for the central U.S. here. Okay, that's about all I got for this evening. Let me just take a quick look at the chat there. David Holcomb is here. Adam Davis, glad to tune in more often. I'm sure spring semester will kill that again. Brett Dean is right on the 6 to 10 degree line. We shall see. Haven't had a significant winter storm yet in South Jersey. And Justin Pulliam says the cold is actually pretty hard on people down here in the South. Lots of fires from overwhelmed heating, space heaters, and natural gas leaks. And yeah, they don't insulate the houses down in the South very well either. So people in trailers, mobile homes, that kind of thing, they really suffer. So hopefully that'll be it for a while. Anyway, take care, and we will see you tomorrow.